I never thought I would be the kind of man who says, "My life completely changed in just a few minutes." But here I am, telling you that exact thing. And the worst part? It wasn't because of an accident or losing my job or some random tragedy. It was because of two people I loved more than anyone else in this world. My wife, Emily, and my brother, Ryan. They were my family, my safe place, the two people I trusted with my life. And yet, they were the ones who were secretly destroying it. Emily and I had been together for 8 years, married for 5. We met in college. She was that girl who lit up the entire room when she walked in. Not in a fake, loud way, but in a quiet, magnetic way. The kind where everyone just naturally wanted to be around her. She had this smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. Back then, I couldn't believe someone like her even noticed me. Ryan was my older brother by 2 years. We weren't just siblings, we were best friends. We grew up playing baseball together in the summer, sharing a tiny bedroom in our parents' house, and defending each other in school fights. We'd always promised that nothing and no one would ever come between us. And for most of my life, I believed that promise with everything I had. When I first introduced Emily to Ryan, they got along instantly. Honestly, it made me happy. My two favorite people actually liked each other. We'd have dinners together, game nights, even trips to the lake in summer. Ryan would joke about how lucky I was to have her, and Emily would laugh and say I was the good brother. I thought it was harmless banter. It was the perfect picture of a happy little family. Or so I thought. The first small cracks appeared maybe a year ago. At the time, I didn't notice them, or maybe I just didn't want to. Ryan started coming over more often when I wasn't home. Emily would tell me, "Oh, he just dropped by to borrow something," or "he needed help with a work project." I didn't question it. Why would I? They were family. They loved me, right? Then there were the little things. Emily suddenly became very protective of her phone, always keeping it face down on the table. If I walked into the room while she was texting, she'd lock her screen without even thinking. Ryan, on the other hand, started avoiding eye contact when I casually asked how his day was. He'd change the subject quickly, like he was in a hurry to end the conversation. One night, about 6 months ago, I woke up around 2 a.m. and found Emily missing from bed. I walked into the kitchen and saw her sitting in the dark, phone in hand, typing furiously. When she noticed me, she jumped, forcing a smile. "Couldn't sleep," she said. "Just scrolling." I wanted to believe her, so I did. Another time, Ryan left his jacket at my place. I went to grab it before he left, and his phone slipped out of the pocket. The screen lit up with a notification. "See you tomorrow, can't wait." No name, just the message. I remember thinking, asterisk, it could be anyone. Asterisk, I convinced myself it was a friend, maybe even a coworker. I pushed it out of my mind. But deep down, something in me was starting to shift. A quiet suspicion. A voice whispering that something wasn't right. That voice got louder 2 weeks ago. Emily told me she was going to visit her sister for the weekend. Ryan told me he was heading out of town for a guy's trip. At first, I didn't see the connection. But then, a thought I couldn't shake. Asterisk, what if they were going somewhere together? Asterisk. I told myself I was being paranoid. But my gut wouldn't let it go. And when your gut screams at you, it's usually for a reason. So I decided to test it. I told Emily I had to work late one Friday night. She left the house around 6 p.m., kissing me goodbye like everything was normal. 10 minutes later, I followed her. I kept my distance, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. She drove straight to Ryan's apartment. I froze in my car, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I watched as Emily got out of her car, glancing around like she was making sure no one saw her. She wasn't carrying anything. No bag, no food, nothing that could explain why she would be visiting my brother at this hour. She walked straight up to his door and knocked softly. Within seconds, Ryan appeared, pulling her inside, without even looking out to see if anyone was watching. My stomach twisted into knots. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to get out of the car, storm up those steps, and demand answers. But I didn't move. Instead, I just sat there, my mind spinning, my heart pounding so loud it was almost deafening. I told myself I needed to be smart. If I confronted them now, they could lie, deny everything, and I'd be left looking like the paranoid husband. No, I needed proof. So I stayed in my car. Minutes ticked by like hours. Every shadow that moved, every sound I thought I heard, made me grip the wheel tighter. I kept replaying every strange moment from the last year. Every time Emily had smiled at a text, every time Ryan had changed the subject when I asked about his weekend, every time they had been just a little too comfortable around each other when they thought I wasn't paying attention. After about 40 minutes, the door finally opened. Emily stepped out first, her hair slightly messy, her cheeks flushed. Ryan followed her to the porch, leaning against the doorframe with that easy grin I'd seen 1,000 times growing up. Except now, it made me sick. He said something to her that I couldn't hear, and she laughed, not just a polite laugh, but the kind she used to give me when we first started dating. Then she walked to her car, got in, and drove away. I stayed there for another 10 minutes, staring at his door, fighting the urge to smash my way in. My chest felt heavy, like someone was pressing down on it with all their weight. I knew what I had just seen. I didn't need an explanation. But still, a part of me wanted to believe there was some other reason. Some innocent excuse. Because the alternative was admitting that the two people I loved most had betrayed me in the worst way possible. When I finally drove home, my mind was a battlefield. On one side was rage, the burning desire to call them both right then and there, to scream until my throat gave out. On the other side was cold calculation, the thought that if I played this right, I could catch them without any way to talk themselves out of it. And in the middle was heartbreak, the crushing realization that my marriage, my family, might already be gone. Emily was already in bed when I got home. She looked half asleep, her hair damp from a shower. "You're home late," she mumbled. I forced a smile and said, "Yeah, had a lot to finish up." She kissed my cheek and turned over, falling asleep within minutes. I just stood there, watching her, wondering how she could lie there so peacefully when she'd just come from my brother's apartment. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, my mind replaying every moment of the evening like a movie I couldn't turn off. The way she looked around before knocking, the way he pulled her inside, the laugh on the porch. Each detail burned deeper into my brain, making it impossible to pretend I hadn't seen it. By the time the sun came up, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to confront them yet. Not until I had undeniable proof. Something they couldn't twist or explain away. And if that meant becoming someone I didn't recognize, someone who followed his own wife and spied on his own brother, then so be it. Because they had already crossed a line, and I wasn't about to let them get away with it. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, staring at the steam swirling above it, not really tasting anything. Emily was across from me, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. She looked up and smiled. "You're quiet this morning," she said softly. I forced my lips into something that resembled a smile and replied, "Just tired." Inside, though, my thoughts were anything but calm. I knew that if I wanted to catch them, I needed to be methodical. Rushing in without proof would only give them the upper hand. Emily was smart. Ryan was clever. Together, they could spin any story they wanted. But if I had hard evidence, photos, videos, messages, they wouldn't be able to talk their way out of it. After breakfast, I pretended to leave for work, but instead, I drove to an electronics store. My heart pounded in my chest as I walked to the counter and asked about discrete recording devices. The clerk showed me a few options: a pen with a hidden camera, a phone charger that recorded audio, even a tiny camera I could hide in a picture frame. I bought 2 items and paid in cash, my hands sweating as I took the bag. That afternoon, I installed the camera in our living room, angled toward the couch. If Emily invited Ryan over while I was at work, I'd have footage. The pen I kept in my car, just in case I needed it for a more direct confrontation. Over the next few days, I started watching her more closely. Emily had routines, patterns, and now I was memorizing every single one. She left for yoga every Tuesday evening, but I noticed she never came home sweaty, and her gym bag looked untouched. On Thursdays, she went to meet a friend for coffee, but couldn't remember what they'd talked about when I asked. Little cracks kept showing. Ryan, on the other hand, became harder to reach. He used to answer my calls within minutes. Now, sometimes it took him hours. And when we did talk, he sounded distracted, like his mind was somewhere else entirely. Then came the moment that almost broke me. Friday night. Emily said she was going to her sister's again. I kissed her goodbye, acting normal, but as soon as she drove off, I followed, keeping my headlights far enough back so she wouldn't notice. My stomach was in knots. A part of me still hoped I was wrong, that she'd actually go to her sister's house and prove my paranoia wrong. She didn't. Instead, she drove straight across town to Ryan's apartment. I watched her park, get out, and run up the steps like she couldn't get inside fast enough. Ryan opened the door before she even knocked. This time, I didn't just sit there. I pulled out my phone, switched it to video, and zoomed in. I caught them hugging. No, not hugging. Holding each other. Too close. Too long. I kept recording until they disappeared inside. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. I sat there for over an hour, my brain on fire. At one point, I thought about calling my sister to tell her everything, but I stopped. This wasn't just about exposing them. It was about doing it in a way that left no doubt. When Emily finally came home that night, she smelled faintly of Ryan's cologne. I knew it instantly. It was the same brand he'd worn for years. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I said sure, and we sat together on the couch. On the outside, I looked calm. On the inside, I was memorizing every lie she told me, building my case piece by piece. Saturday morning came with a heavy, gray sky, the kind that makes you want to stay in bed all day. But I couldn't. I'd been lying awake for an hour already, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every little glance, every suspicious word Emily had said in the last month. I turned my head to look at her. She was still asleep, her hair falling across her face, her breathing slow and steady. If I didn't know what I knew, I might have thought she looked peaceful, innocent. But now, even in her sleep, I wondered, was she dreaming about me or about him? I slid out of bed quietly, careful not to wake her. The house felt colder than usual, though maybe that was just me. I made coffee, stood by the window watching the slow drizzle outside, and started thinking about my next move. If I confronted her without absolute proof, she'd deny everything. Ryan would back her up, and then I'd be the paranoid husband who destroyed his own marriage. No, I needed something they couldn't talk their way out of. After a few minutes, I pulled out my phone and texted Ryan. Asterisk. Hey man, thinking about coming by tomorrow to watch the game. You free? Asterisk. It took him a while to reply, and when he did, it was exactly what I expected. Asterisk. Nah, not tomorrow. Got plans. Asterisk. My stomach tightened. He didn't say what those plans were, but I could guess. And I had a feeling Emily would have the same plans. Emily wandered into the kitchen a few minutes later, still in her robe, hair a mess. You're up early, she said, pouring herself coffee. Couldn't sleep. I replied casually, hiding the storm inside me. Then, as if it had just crossed my mind, I added, by the way, my boss put me on an extra shift tomorrow afternoon. Won't be home until late. She gave me a quick glance, then sipped her coffee. Oh, I guess I'll go visit my sister again then. The words were almost too easy, too rehearsed. That was all I needed to hear. The trap was set. After breakfast, I drove to a nearby electronics store. The rain had picked up, drumming on the hood of my car. I sat there for a moment before going inside, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I wasn't just buying gadgets. I was arming myself for war. Inside, I browsed the security section like a man on a mission. I picked up a tiny hallway camera disguised as a smoke detector, a button camera I could clip to my shirt, and an audio recorder no bigger than a coin. Paid in cash. No paper trail. Sunday came. I left the house just after noon, giving Emily a quick kiss on the cheek before heading to work. My heart was pounding the whole time, but I kept my face neutral. She didn't suspect a thing. Instead of going to my job, I drove straight to a small parking lot half a block from Ryan's apartment. The air smelled like wet pavement and exhaust. My pulse was in my ears. First, I set up the hallway camera just above his door. I kept a set of tools in my hand, pretending to be a building maintenance guy in case anyone passed. Nobody did. Once it was in place, I returned to my car and waited. The minutes dragged like hours. My fingers tapped on the steering wheel, a nervous rhythm I couldn't stop. At exactly 1:14 p.m., Emily's car pulled up. She stepped out wearing fitted jeans and a light sweater, hair down, a touch of makeup she didn't bother with for casual errands. My chest tightened. She walked quickly, like she couldn't get inside fast enough. I hit record on my phone as she approached the door. Ryan opened it almost instantly, smiling in that way I used to see when he spotted me in a crowd. His hand went straight to her waist before pulling her inside. It wasn't just a hug. It was an embrace that told a whole story. My stomach turned, but I kept recording until the door shut behind them. I could have driven away then, but I didn't. 20 minutes later, I grabbed the button camera, clipped it under my jacket, and walked up the stairs to his apartment. I knocked once, no answer. Knocked again, silence. My jaw clenched. I crouched down and slid the tiny audio recorder under the door, close enough to catch every word. Back in my car, I plugged my headphones into the live feed. At first, there was just muffled movement, footsteps, the sound of a drawer closing. Then Emily's voice, softer than I'd ever heard it. Asterisk, we can't keep doing this forever. He's going to find out. Asterisk, my breath caught in my throat. Ryan's reply came with a low chuckle. Asterisk, relax. He has no idea. You're too good at lying. Asterisk. It was like being punched in the gut. My hands trembled, but I forced myself to keep listening. They talked about how predictable I was, how I never noticed the little things, how careful they had been from the start. Each word was a blade twisting deeper. Emily even laughed at one point and said, Asterisk, he still thinks I'm going to my sister's. I could probably keep this going for months. Asterisk. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. I sat there for over an hour, listening to pieces of their conversation, small touches, inside jokes, moments that used to be mine. When Emily finally left, I waited another 10 minutes before retrieving the recorder. I didn't listen to the rest until I was back home, sitting in my office with the door locked. The audio was crystal clear. No excuses. No misunderstandings. They weren't just flirting, they were in deep. And they'd been doing it long enough to think they were untouchable. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. My heart was a mix of rage, heartbreak, and cold determination. I had enough to blow this up right now, but a part of me wanted more. Wanted them to see my face when they realized I had been watching, listening, recording every second. Wanted them to feel the same helplessness I'd felt. And in that moment, I knew the real game was only just beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily stepping into Ryan's apartment, the way his hands pulled her close, the sound of their laughter echoing in my head. The audio recording sat on my desk like a loaded gun, ready to be fired. I had enough to end this now. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized ending it quickly would be letting them off easy. They'd just slink away, maybe even try to paint me as the bad guy. No, I wanted them to feel cornered. I wanted them to look me in the eye and know I'd been 10 steps ahead the whole time. By sunrise, I had a plan. Sunday morning was quiet. Emily made pancakes like nothing had happened, humming softly as she flipped them. I sat at the table, sipping my coffee, my face unreadable. Every so often, she'd glance at me, maybe checking if I suspected anything. If only she knew. After breakfast, I told her I was going to the hardware store to pick up a few things for a project. In reality, I went back to the electronics shop and bought 2 more hidden cameras, one shaped like a picture frame, the other disguised as a digital clock. I planned to set them up in the living room and kitchen when she was out, so I'd catch every detail of their next meeting. I even picked up an extra memory card, just in case. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Around noon, Emily's phone buzzed on the counter while she was in the shower. The screen lit up, Ryan. Can you come by today instead? My pulse spiked. This was it. I texted back, pretending to be her. Yeah, give me an hour. My hands were shaking, but I worked fast. I grabbed the cameras from my bag, set them in place, and made sure they were recording. When Emily got out of the shower, I told her I'd just gotten called into work unexpectedly. She frowned for a split second, then smiled. Well, I guess I'll go to my sister's then. My stomach churned, but I nodded and kissed her cheek like always. I left in my car, but only drove 2 streets over, parking where I had a clear view of the house. 30 minutes later, Ryan's truck pulled up. My teeth clenched as I watched him walk to the front door like he owned the place. Emily opened it with that same smile I used to think was just for me. They stepped inside together, and the door closed. The cameras didn't miss a thing. Back on my phone, I monitored the feed. At first, they just talked about their sneaky plans, about how they'd been careful. Then Ryan asked if she was sure I was working late. She laughed and said, he's clueless. I could have him walk right past us, and he still wouldn't notice. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles turned white. Then it got worse. They started reminiscing about the first time they crossed the line. How it had been at Ryan's old place after a few too many drinks. How they both knew it was wrong, but they couldn't stop. They even joked about the excuses they'd given me. Little lies that had been so easy to slip past my trust. Each word felt like another knife. But I didn't look away. I forced myself to watch every second, to burn it into my memory. Because soon, they'd be watching me. 2 hours later, Ryan finally left. Emily walked him to the door, gave him a kiss that lingered just a little too long, then locked up. She didn't know that the moment the door closed, I was already on my way back. When I stepped inside, the air felt heavy. She was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone. Back already? She asked, trying to sound casual. Yeah, I said, setting my keys down. My voice was calm. Too calm. She didn't notice. That night, while she slept, I copied every file from the cameras and audio recorders to a secure folder on my laptop, backing them up to a USB drive I kept in my jacket pocket. I even uploaded them to a private cloud account, just in case. I wasn't going to risk losing this evidence. Not when I was this close. Tomorrow would be the day. The day I'd bring it all into the open. But not in private. No, I wanted them both in the same room. I wanted to watch their faces collapse in real time. And I already knew exactly how to make that happen. The next evening, I set the stage. I invited both Emily and Ryan over for dinner. I told Emily it was a casual get-together, and I told Ryan I had something important to discuss about a project we were all involved in. Neither of them suspected a thing. The living room was spotless. The table was set for 3. The hidden camera was already recording from the shelf, pointed right at the couch. On the coffee table sat my laptop, closed but ready. I had the files queued up, just one click, and their lies would unravel in real time. Emily arrived first, wearing her favorite red dress. She smiled, leaned in to kiss me. I let her. My stomach twisted. A few minutes later, Ryan knocked. He walked in, casual as ever, with that smug grin I now knew wasn't just friendly. He gave Emily a nod, and for a moment, I saw it. The flicker in their eyes when they looked at each other. The silent language of people with a shared secret. We sat, made small talk. I poured drinks. Then I leaned back in my chair and said, "So, I've been working on something lately. Thought you'd both want to see it." I opened the laptop and hit play. At first, they didn't react, just confusion as the footage showed my kitchen, my living room. Then Emily's smile faded. Ryan's eyes narrowed. And then came the audio, their voices, clear as day, talking about me, laughing about me. Emily's face went pale. Ryan shifted in his seat. What is this?" Emily stammered. "You tell me," I said, my voice steady but low. "When exactly were you planning to let me in on your little secret?" Ryan leaned forward. "Man, you've got this wrong." "Wrong?" I cut him off, my voice rising. "You think I don't recognize my own girlfriend's voice? My best friend's voice? You think I don't see the way you look at each other?" Emily's hands were trembling. "It's not what it looks like." "Then explain it," I snapped. "Explain the kisses. The nights together. The jokes about how clueless I am. Go on, say it out loud." The room was dead silent except for the faint hum of the laptop fan. Ryan broke first. "Fine. Yeah, we screwed up. But it's not like you were perfect, either. You were distant. Don't you dare try to spin this on me," I said, standing up. "You walked into my home, into my life, and you both decided my trust meant nothing." Emily started to cry. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "Please, can we just talk about this? Just the two of us?" I laughed, cold, sharp. "The two of us? That's exactly how this started, isn't it? Just the two of you, behind my back." For a long moment, no one moved. Then I walked to the door, opened it, and said, "Get out. Both of you." Ryan stood, muttering something under his breath. Emily hesitated, her eyes searching mine for any sign of forgiveness. She didn't find it. She stepped out into the night without another word. When the door clicked shut, I leaned against it, the weight of it all crashing down. I was alone, but at least I had my self-respect. I knew this was just the first night of many where I'd be rebuilding my life from scratch. And here's the thing. Part of me still wonders, should I have confronted them differently? Or was this the only way to end it?